What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. I am James Lynch. Happy to welcome back one of our favorite guests on here. You've seen him a number of times. This is the guy I go to when I need to talk about the Edmonton Oilers. He is on the beat doing some really great work. Of course, I'm talking to my guy Avry here today. Avry, how you doing, man?
I'm good, James. How are you, buddy?
Doing great. So, yeah, I wanted to get you on because, there's a lot of storylines going on in the NHL right now, but one of the big ones is obviously the big injuries to the Edmonton Oilers with Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and we've seen certain players on the Oilers step up into those positions. But I guess I wanted to get your sort of temperature on how Oiler fans are feeling going into these playoffs, because obviously it's not ideal with some of the injuries, and I know obviously they're going to make the playoffs, but what's sort of your assessment of where the Oilers are right now with all the things they're dealing with?
After the Four Nations face-off, there's a bit of a slump. This team couldn't get things going after the Four Nations face-off, but now you're seeing the rest of the core step up. Guys like Jeff Skinner, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Secondary scoring is going to be a really big thing for this team going into the postseason. Now we see McDavid and Draisaitl have been banged up. They're sitting for a little bit, which isn't too bad in my mind. If I'm management, if I'm this Oilers team, I want my two big guns going into a playoff race healthy as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's one of those things where, obviously you would like everything to kind of go A-okay here. But, I've been really impressed with certain players on the team, especially the veteran players. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, I've been really impressed. Obviously, I pay attention to him because he's from here, Vancouver, but he's been really stepping up and elevating his role. You've seen other guys come into this place. Who's really impressed you the most in McDavid and Draisaitl's absence?
I mentioned on top of Jeff Skinner, he's someone who has found his place on this roster. I know when the season came in, started up, he was playing more third line minutes. But when he's played on the top six, he has shown why he's so good as a scorer and as a skater in front of the net. So he's someone who I think going into postseason can be a key cog. But also, too, Jake Wallman on the back end. Jake Wallman is someone who they got in from San Jose. And as a D-man, he is so steady with the puck, and he can find ways to find guys in offensive zones with his elite passing.
Yeah. And one of the things with Skinner, though, I know the season hasn't exactly been ideal. I know the coach hasn't really trusted him in certain situations. What do you think's changed? Is it just a matter of him getting more opportunities, or do you think it's something that he's done? How do you assess Skinner sort of turning things around at this point in the season?
I think it's a little bit from column A, from column B, because if you know Jeff Skinner's game, his game has been much more geared to being mainly in the offensive zone. We've seen Jeff working his offensive game a little bit more, trying to play a more 200-foot game, which Chris Knobloch likes. We've seen Skinner improving that, but also, too, it is opportunities, because when you put a guy like Jeff Skinner, who's a multi-time 30-goal man with skill, playing on a top six team that contains Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Zach Hyman, he'll find ways to get to the front of the net. He gets to the front. He's aggressive. He's not afraid to go to the hard areas, and he'll find a way to score when called upon.
Now, in terms of what the Oilers, I want to back up a little bit, actually, because, I haven't spoken to you since the trade deadline. What did you make of some of the moves that the Oilers made? They did make some moves, which was great, and I think some of those moves have certainly paid dividends, but what were your overall thoughts on the activity they had at the trade deadline?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised to see his team get active, make some moves. Obviously, it's important to bring in a Jake Wallman. They bring in Trent Frederick, who's banged up right now. He's not going to play for another 10 days or so for what's come out from management. And also bring in Max Jones. So the bigger pieces, they bring in Wallman and Frederick. Those are going to be two big assets when it comes to production on the back end and in the bottom six. But I did think this team did need to go in and try and find another goaltender to help out Stuart Skinner. I was in the camp of, try to go out and get, say, a Jake Allen out of New Jersey to go into a postseason run with a tandem of, say, Stuart Skinner and Jake Allen. But it appears this organization is content to go once again with Skinner and Kyle Pickard in the postseason here in 2025.
That was my sort of critique. I thought the Oilers did a good job in sort of some of the moves they made. I don't know why they haven't addressed the goaltending. And again, I know that, there have been moments where both, Skinner and Pickard have been playing well. I just wonder if you would have liked that, maybe that extra insurance, bring someone in on a bit of a lighter contract. I don't know what the market was like out there. I'm not saying get like a John Gibson, because obviously he's going to come with a bit more of a price tag, but I do wonder if there were some veterans that maybe they could have scoured a little bit for, just to have that experience in the net. So we'll see if that pays off. I wanted to show you the standings right now and everyone else in our audience. By the way, anyone watching this show right now, leave questions in the chat here. Anything Edmonton Oilers or hockey in general related, we're happy to see it. But if you look at the standings right now, Edmonton currently 6th in the Western Conference. Is there kind of like an ideal matchup for the Oilers, do you think, going into this? I mean, I think if we're going with years past, it would be the LA Kings. They seem to own them in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, we're on a crash course again for a 4th year of Edmonton, LA. At the same time, though, this Kings team is no joke. The LA Kings, right? You see the standings; they've won 4 in a row. They're 9-1. They're past 10 games, and they're getting a lot of production from guys like Quinton Byfield, the veterans there. So I don't think the LA Kings is going to be a slouch coming this postseason. So I don't know if there's really an ideal matchup for the Oilers, be it out of say an LA or a Vegas, because I think if you go against the LA Kings right now, I mean, if you asked me back in November, December, yeah, it probably would have been Edmonton in say 4 or 5 again. But now you go into Edmonton, LA this time of year, now things have changed. It might be an Edmonton in 7, or maybe LA finally gets over that hump now in the postseason here against the Oilers in round 1.
When you look at this Western Conference, obviously we're talking about the Oilers, and they made it to the finals last year. They were a game away from actually winning the whole thing. When you look at this Western Conference, who are some threats, do you think? Because I talked about this last week on the show. To me, the 3 big threats here, and I'm going to exclude one team, and we may disagree on this, but I think it's Vegas, Colorado, Dallas. Those to me are the teams that top to bottom, very few weaknesses. I didn't mention Winnipeg because I think they're doing the same thing they did last year. I think, Avry, and you can disagree with me how you want, but I think they're overplaying Hellebuck, and I think we've seen games where he hasn't been up to par, and we had this last year in the playoffs. What do you make of some of the big threats in the in the Western Conference? What are your thoughts on kind of the overall landscape as it sits right now?
No, you made a good point about Winnipeg. You know, Winnipeg, year in, year out, they go in, they have a hot start, or they finish strong. And yeah, again, you run to the Jets in round 1 or round 2, and they struggle to get over that hump. So I agree. Winnipeg has to show me they're not smoke and mirrors once again. Vegas, that's a team, no matter what year it is, no matter who's on the roster, they always find ways to be a top team in Western Conference. They're always going to be a threat under the era of Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee. But the one team I think people should be looking at, in my mind, honestly, James, is the St. Louis Blues. That's a team, a wild card team coming in, and they've played really well. They've been getting a lot of production from the top 6, and they're getting a lot of production from guys like Dylan Holloway, last year, who they got off the offer sheet from Edmonton. So I think the Blues are a team that could make some noise in my mind in the Western Conference.
That's what I'm curious about, and is, because as things stand right now, it would be Winnipeg and St. Louis playing each other. You might, Winnipeg's there, 7 straight they've won. This is a team that didn't really make a ton of big moves over the offseason. If anything, they sold certain assets. There's all this talk about them trading Braden Shen. It doesn't end up happening. But you're right. The Holloway and Broberg moves were just genius. They ended up really working out well. They essentially, got 2 really good prospects for not having to give up a whole lot. If I had to pick a dark horse team, I don't even know if they are a dark horse because we're talking about them here, and obviously they've been playing well, but I think it's St. Louis. This gives me some vibes from 2019 of a team that just kind of came out of nowhere and is really, pushing quite well. Why do you think St. Louis has been so successful? I don't know how much of you watched them. Canucks played them, what was it, last week week before. They're definitely a team that has, is a scoring threat. And when Binnington's on, he's certainly very much on, for them. But when you look at St. Louis, what makes them so dangerous?
I think they're a very balanced team when it comes to goals for and goals against. They don't give up too many bad chances. The goal differential +15. They're a really balanced team right now. They don't take a ton of risks as a franchise right now. And Jim Montgomery has had this team playing in a really, really solid state right now. He's someone who we all know was a great coach. Things didn't work out in the end towards Boston. It is what it is. But that coach balance for Montgomery and St. Louis has been a really big thing for them. And I've talked to a few players in the Blues beforehand, and they like his coaching style in that room.
Yeah, I think that was just an amazing hire. And again, it just shows you how great of a coach Montgomery is, where he gets scooped up immediately after getting let go by Boston. Just taking a look at some of the other things that are going on in the Western Conference. You see Minnesota slipping a little bit. Of course, they're dealing with some injury issues. Do you see much movement here in the top 8? I'll say it right now. I don't think I'm saying anything crazy here, but I think St. Louis is the team to make it. They've got a much easier schedule compared to Calgary and Vancouver. I know they're, Calgary and Vancouver both, Calgary especially has been playing very well. Vancouver's still technically in it, but I think the Canucks were done basically after that Rangers game on Saturday. But what do you make of kind of the, that 8 spot? Because I think if anyone could maybe slip out here, it's Minnesota.
Yeah, no, the Wild, they've been in a really weird place. They've been had injuries, they've been slumping. Their home record isn't that great. So if anyone does collapse, probably will be Minnesota. But the team that I thought could have had a chance, but kind of been slowing down, has been Utah. They were a team. I mean, even last year, going back to when their last year in Arizona, they kind of ran out of gas. And Utah, I thought could have had a shot again here, but it's clear that the Utah Hockey Club has run out of gas once again when it comes to making a wild card spot, James.
Well, and I think also, unfortunately, and I know it's a sensitive subject, but Connor Ingram being out for them, that certainly doesn't help things. I feel like this has been a team that especially with the start of the year and their injuries, they just haven't had the breaks go their way. And I think Utah's right there. I have no doubt next year they'll be a playoff team. I think this year, maybe. I mean, technically they're still in it, but I really don't see Utah making a push. That was actually my pick before all this stuff happened with St. Louis. Is that I thought Utah is going to be the team to sneak in because I've seen them play a number of times this year. They're a fast, really dangerous offensive team, and they're getting a decent enough goaltending that they can go forward. But I think now because what was that game the other night? It was I think they got blown out. It was I forget which team. I'm gonna go look it up right now. But they they haven't really played inconsistent. Oh, it was the Oilers actually. They lost 7-1. That's right. So you would know firsthand. It was not a very pretty outcome there for Utah in that one.
No, it was not. But it's funny. You mentioned a team though. Like there's a lot of guys on that roster I like. Be it the Logan Cooley's, Dylan Gunther's, the Clayton Kellers. It is a fun young team, and yeah, they will figure it out. They will. I think they will be a playoff team next year. It's just a matter of again trying to go through the growing pains and trying to win those hard games when you're in Game 70, Game 71, Game 72 against the best of the Western Conference.
Just kind of taking a step back here, looking at sort of the playoff picture or whatever. Are there any other teams that you think really obviously there were some teams that made some moves. I really like Avalanche. The Avalanche making some moves, getting Brock Nelson. That's seems to pay off. Dallas with the big move, obviously getting obviously Mikko from Carolina. Winnipeg didn't do a whole lot, and I do wonder if that's. And I hate to rag on Winnipeg. I know that we've kind of talked about that a few times here, but I think they should have went out and tried to get a second line center. And I don't know if there were issues in them trading things, but I just think like if you are a team that's doing so well, this is the time to go all in. Were you a bit surprised by that, or do you think that speaks more to because I've heard some rumblings that players don't want to go to Winnipeg?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was surprising. You hear it all the time. Winnipeg's always a team where they're always on our list of, oh, I don't want to be traded there. You see them on the no trade list all the time. But to their credit, though, it's not a bad team. I mean, it's a team that gets consistently in among the Central Division contenders. It's a hardcore fan base. I mean, they win, but I think that stigma is again of, Winnipeg, Manitoba, I don't want to play there no matter who's around me, which does kind of suck because those fans deserve better. But you're right, James. I was surprised to see them not add one more piece and go get a second line center, because that could be a difference between them falling out in the first round or having a deep run that could see them get back to conference finals for the first time since 2018.
I want to ask you a few more Oilers things here, and then we'll wrap things up here shortly. But just out of curiosity, how is Vasily Podkolzin playing for you? Because I do see that he's a regular in the lineup. It seems like a very good pickup. A lot of Canucks fans were kind of annoyed that they got rid of him because the whole idea was the Canucks had signed Daniel Sprong, and he was supposed to be the replacement. Sprong lasted 10 games, and then you give up a former first-round pick in Podkolzin. I know a lot of Canucks fans are obviously cheering for Podkolzin to do well, but seems like he's fit in well. Is that accurate, or what would you make of his play under the Oilers this season?
Now, I would say when the season began, he was a great fit. He was someone who came in, scored early, and I know he had kind of a bit of a lull mid-season with his game where he tried to find himself. He didn't score for a minute, but you're seeing now Podkolzin back to being able to contribute. He's physical. He's finding guys to pass the puck to. So I think he's kind of a guy where I think he might be an unsung hero come the postseason. He's chipped in with 22 points in 70 games. I mean, you would want to see a little bit more from him, but he's finding ways in spurts to be effective as a bottom six forward for the Oilers team, James.
It's good to hear. One other guy I wanted to ask about, because he was an offseason acquisition, Victor Arvidsson. I don't think it's really been gone according to plan for him this year. What's sort of the thoughts on him this season? Because I don't think it was exactly what the Oilers had hoped.
Yeah, no, from a guy who was a key cog for the LA Kings for a number of years and a key player for Nashville as well, a guy who has years of multiple 20-goal seasons. The big thing for Robertson was that he couldn't stay healthy. He battled injuries here in Edmonton all year long. So if he had a full year where he wasn't banged up and coming in out of the lineup and getting injured again, it would have been very different if he had his full year of health. Right now, he only has 22 points, just 10 goals. If you give Victor Arvidsson 75 healthy games, he would have been a 20-goal man, I think, in my mind.
Sticking with the Oilers, Evander Kane, what's happening with this whole situation? He hasn't played all season. I know there's some cap issues there, although I guess if it's in the playoffs, it doesn't count against the cap. But any update on him? Because I'm hearing things aren't going quite well between like him and the Oilers and figuring out when he can come back. What's the latest on Kane?
Yeah, it's been a really weird situation, but Evander Kane is skating again. He's been skating again the past week with the team, and not just on his own, with the team in full practices. So we don't have a timeline confirmed yet for him, but it does sound like he will be playing in the postseason. Just a matter of where do you slot him and what round he's come in. Because after not playing for an entire year, is it possible for him to jump into a game one roster? I don't know if that's possible. He may need some more time just to get things going, get back into game shape. And again, it's a matter of, in terms of that forward core, who is sitting for Evander Kane. You have Trent Frederick, Jeff Skinner, et cetera, who is sitting down for Evander Kane, a guy who hasn't played since last season. So that's a big question mark this team has to address in a few weeks here.
But what's going to be interesting is that, let's say there are injuries or something. I mean, to have an Evander Kane coming off, and even if he's just, not even if he's like 50%, 60%, you're still getting some offensive production from that. So that's got to be a bit of a, ace in their sleeve, so to speak, in the playoffs if they can get Kane back, because they haven't had him all season, and the Oilers have done quite well without him.
Mm-hmm. No, you're right in that too. And one thing too, James, that with Evander Kane is that people like to talk about recapturing Evander Kane. Don't get me wrong. When he's on. But the 2022 Evander Kane, when he first came in, didn't have knee injuries, didn't have a sports hernia, didn't have a wrist injury. Now, all it's built up over the past 2 years or so. And for a guy who's on the wrong side of 30 with those injuries, that can hamper your game. So, which is why I don't think you can expect him at least to just jump in immediately in game one and beat Evander Kane in 2022, who had a great postseason for the Oilers. So I think in terms of expectations, temper them a bit. I mean, if he comes out and blows the doors off this team, great. But I'm not expecting Evander Kane of 2 years ago, who came in injury-free to this roster.
Connor McDavid, I know we got some time, obviously, on the contract extension and all that. I imagine he's staying. The president is his former agent. Like the Oilers have done a really good job of making Connor happy, you would think. We'll have to see what happens this year. Although, I mean, I don't know what better situation you can be in than being with the Edmonton Oilers. Again, they were a game away from the Cup final. Is there any concern there? Is there any update on when we might see a contract extension? I mean, that's obviously would take place, I think, next year, right?
Exactly. Yeah, his camp has kept things very quiet. And in terms of questions, Connor doesn't want to face any questions. Like right now, it's a matter of him being focused on this season. But yeah, you're right, James. I can't see him leaving. Connor loves it here. He set up home here. Like this is a guy, he's been here since 18 years old. He mentioned Jeff Jackson, his former agent, is here. Everything Connor McDavid has or wants to have is in Edmonton, Alberta. And if you were to go somewhere else, we don't know if you get as much as you would want anywhere else, say in LA, in New York, or Toronto. In Edmonton, things have been made for Connor McDavid. So I see him signing a long-term extension this summer.
And just last question here, and again, great stuff again, Avry. Always appreciate having you on. I'm sure you watched games on Amazon Prime. I watched the game the other night, the Devils and the Canucks. Why are they so much better? Like, I prefer that so much more over Sportsnet. And again, I'm not trying to talk smack on Sportsnet here, but I just feel like it's such a better, more polished product. And it's so weird to say that because they're new. Sportsnet's been around forever. You think if anyone would be better at the broadcast or just the overall production, it would be them. But why do you think that is? Like, I think, I'm curious to get your thoughts on the difference between the broadcasts.
Yeah, first of all, I love Amazon. I think it's a great broadcast production. I love John Forsland, Adnan Virk. I think they have great talent. But what they do, I think the other teams don't do. I like the fact that they're in different cities, talking to other media personalities, talking to hockey influencers, talking to ex-players. They're doing things that Sportsnet and TSN are really doing mid-game. And the way they approach games, I think is the way they break down games, I think is a little bit better than say a Sportsnet on the broadcast. And also too, one thing, I'm not really a natural sound broadcast guy, but I like that they go in pregame and let you just hear what a pregame skate sounds like. I think that's different. So I think Amazon not being afraid to take risks is a big advantage of them compared to a Sportsnet or a TSN. They're trying to take a risk, which in year one, why not do it? Experiment a little bit.
Yeah, I think it comes across so much better. I just I watched that Quinn Hughes interview the other night after the game, and I've never seen Quinn that open in an interview. He seems so relaxed and good. And credit to PK Subban, who I think has become one of the best broadcasters since retiring. Like, he is like their Kevin Bieksa, but I think he's even better. I think he's just so relaxed, and you can tell the players have a lot of respect for him too, which is cool. Like, Hughes, again, he was kind of joking around with him and all that. I think Sportsnet needs to, revamp things a little bit. It seems too buttoned up for me, they're going to break, and nothing against David Amber and everyone else who does a great job there and everyone who does the stuff in between, but I find it's too, just structured. I want a little bit more loose stuff and more Bieksa, less, buttoned up stuff. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because end of the day, this is sports, and you can have your fact, you can have your takes, you can be serious at times, but you're right. Loosen up a little bit, have some fun. End of the day, this is sports, this is hockey, this is basketball, etc., etc. And I think that's the thing that differentiates us from broadcasts on ESPN and TNT, where it's always so serious up here when it doesn't really need to be.
Yeah. Completely agree. Avry, great stuff, man. Anything you got coming up, anything you want to plug that you got going on, by all means, let my audience know here before we get you out of here.
Yeah, like always, you can find my work on avrysports.com. You can follow me on Twitter at AVRY, and also tap into my beat coverage for the hockey news on the Edmonton Oilers and all NHL stuff there at thehockeynews.com.
There you go. That's Avry. We'll get you back on for sure come playoff time, because we'll definitely doing some playoff content here. So thanks so much, man, and appreciate the time as always.
No, of course, anytime, buddy.
There you go. That is our guy Avry. Love having him on here. I always like getting certain people on from different markets, and Avry does such a good job with the Oilers. He's always my guy to kind of see what's going on there. And you guys know I'm not the biggest Oilers guy, obviously, coming from Vancouver, but it's cool to get the perspective on what's happening in the locker room, the dressing room. And again, I think it is a big storyline right now with McDavid and Draisaitl out. Now, look, the Oilers aren't going to miss the playoffs. That's clear, but still not an ideal situation going in there when you don't have your two superstars playing at a top level. And again, the Four Nations really took a lot of these players here. So let's have a quick look like we normally do. Normally we start the show kind of looking at the action from last night. So let's do that. We'll look ahead to tonight, talk about some of the odds and some of the things that are going on. We'll also revisit the standings. And I also want to talk about Alexander Ovechkin getting even closer to getting Gretzky's record. Okay, so last night, a lot of action here. Missed opportunity. We're going to start with this by the Ottawa Senators, coming up short against the Buffalo Sabres. These are games that Ottawa has to win. I think Ottawa is still going to make the playoffs, but you got to go in and show a little bit more effort. Forsberg did not exactly play so good for them, and that could be an issue come playoff time if Allmark's out or whatever happens. So again, Sabres get a big win there over Ottawa. The Leafs absolutely thumping the Flyers. Not much to say here. It's the Flyers. They're going to get another high draft pick. We'll see when the Flyers are going to be able to turn it around, but it's going to a couple seasons now. The Lightning absolutely thumping the Penguins. Nedeljkovic got pulled last night. Yeah, they did put in Tristan Jarry. Good to see Jarry getting some time in there. I know it's been an absolute disaster season for him. But the Penguins, again, falling to 29-33. We'll see what they're up to in the offseason. Obviously going to be outside looking in. Some other games we had last night. The Predators beating the Hurricanes. Bit of a surprise there. Hurricanes were almost minus 300 favorites. So Predators still hanging around. The Blues thumping the Montreal Canadiens. We talked about how good the Blues have been the last little bit. 7 straight wins. And they are looking like a team that will make the playoffs. You got the Jets beating the Capitals. Big tilt there between these two juggernaut teams. The Knights taking out the Wild at home 5-1. We talked about the Wild and their injuries and their struggles. We'll keep an eye on them come playoff time, but things aren't looking so good for them. In terms of their record, you got the Avalanche thumping the Red Wings. No surprises there. The Flames getting a much-needed 2 points in overtime against Seattle. That's going to hurt the Canucks, but again, I still think the Flames aren't going to make it. And then you got the Kings beating the Rangers at home. The Rangers, I saw it firsthand on Saturday. They're not a well-coached team. They're not an organized team. They're not a team that looks like a playoff team. Again, we'll look at the standings here shortly, but Kings getting it done at home. No real surprises there. So we talked about the Western Conference. Again, I think how this is set is probably going to be how it's set. Minnesota's got 85 points. You got Calgary, Vancouver, Utah in the 70s. I don't think they're going to catch Minnesota, but you never know. Minnesota's lost 2 in a row right now. Not a good time to have a losing streak. So that's something to keep in mind. But I think the East, things get really interesting. So obviously at the top, we still got Washington, Carolina, Toronto, Montreal, Tampa. Jersey slipped a little bit here. You look at their last 10, they're 4-5-1. So again, losing to the Canucks in the shootout the other night in a game that I thought was done. I thought this was a repeat of the New York game where New Jersey scores late, and I thought, okay, the Canucks aren't going to score again. And then you got the Senators. Again, 79 points. They are still in the hunt here. They are 7-3 in their last 10, so that's good. They're still in there. And then Montreal losing last night, but they are in a spot. But the Islanders, look at this, 5-2-3 in their last 10 games. They're picking it up. We'll see if they can get a win here tonight. And they have 2 games in hand on the Rangers, who have the same point as them. So we'll see how that shakes up. And unfortunately for Columbus, things are not getting better. I do want to get Troy back on the show to talk about what's going on with Columbus. They are also dealing with some injuries. So this is where we're at right now in the East. You've got, again, Montreal, Ottawa, New Jersey. So things can get interesting. But yeah, I would not count out the Islanders right now. They're playing some really good hockey. So that's where we're at. Okay, let's have a quick look at tonight's games, courtesy of our friends over at Bodog. And going to have a look at the odds and what might be worth a stab as far as some of the games tonight. So looking at just 2 games tonight on the docket. You got the Devils minus 220 favorites over the Blackhawks. That's probably a win for New Jersey, although again, haven't been playing the best. Probably going to avoid that. And the Islanders and Canucks dead even at minus 110. So that's kind of interesting to see. Remember, the Canucks right now, not with Elias Pettersson or Niels Höglander. However, they do have Thatcher Demko back between the pipes. He played the other night. We'll see if he gets the nod or if they go with Kevin Lankinen. If Demko's healthy and ready to go, I don't see why you don't play him. He's had a day off in between. I could see that happening too. And then, 2 other games that are going on as well. You got the Ducks, who are favorites over the Bruins. That's interesting. I know Boston hasn't been playing great, but Boston plus 110, that might be worth a stab as a dog pick. And then you've got the Stars as minus 135 against the Oilers at home. The Oilers at home might be worth a stab too at plus money at plus 115. We'll have to keep an eye on how things end up there. What else did we want to talk about? So yeah, we got some of the action tonight, kind of looking ahead here. A couple other key games that we'll kind of focus on here. Again, the Canadians playing the Flyers, bit of an easier one there. Senators should beat the Red Wings. And you've got a couple of the other games coming up here too. That are key, like Utah fighting for a playoff lives. The Blues again. I talked about their easier schedule. They're playing the Predators again. That should be a good win for them there. And yeah, so a lot of action coming up here pretty soon, and it's going to be interesting to see where all the teams kind of end up and how things are going. A bit of news that we got to get into from yesterday: Jacob Chychrun re-signing with the Washington Capitals. Let's bring up that contract right here. Here we go. 8-year deal for Jacob Chychrun. He was, of course, acquired by the Ottawa Senators in the offseason. So this is a good to sign up one of their younger defensemen here. So I believe it's $9 million per season, which is good. So that, I mean, with the cap going up, that's actually a pretty reasonable contract. And how old is he? I think he's 26? Something along those lines. How old is Chychrun? He is, 26 years old. So that's something to consider. Washington looking to really beef things up. And, it's interesting. We were talking about Utah earlier. The reason I thought about it because we're thinking of signings. Utah going to have a lot of cap space this summer. So I wonder if they make a play for some of the big free agents that are out there. You got Mitch Marner. You've got Ehlers, Brock Besser. So we'll see if Utah's in play for any of those. But just looking at the cap right now, you'll see that they have a ton of cap space. $65 million to be exact. So we'll see what they're able to do in terms of their roster, because they're already a pretty good roster. You add like a superstar in there, they're going to be a serious, dangerous team going forward. So that's something to certainly consider when it comes to the Utah Hockey Club. Some other stuff going on. I mentioned Alexander Ovechkin. Let's do a quick search over on him. So he is how many away now? Inches closer. Yeah, so the Jets obviously beat the Capitals the other night, but I believe Ovechkin is 889, and he's 6 away. So he could still do it, because if you look at the games remaining for the Washington Capitals, they have a number of games left. So it's doable. I didn't think it was going to happen this season, but Ovechkin going and breaking the record this season would be incredible. And it would be very impressive for the Capitals as well to have this feather in their cap. This is a team that snuck into the playoffs last year, didn't do a whole lot. And then this year they look like one of the best teams. Well, they are one of the best teams in the league. So to add in the factor of Ovechkin in that will certainly be very interesting. Let's have another look too at some of the RFAs that are available. Actually, we'll do the UFA 2025 NHL. Hold on. Yeah, let's have a quick look at some of the free agents that are currently in the NHL right now. Just waiting for this page to load here. Actually, we'll get to like the top ones. We talked about this last week too, but just kind of going over some of the signings, because again, these are things that we'll talk about obviously after the playoffs are done, but certainly worth noting that you got a number of names here, but not a really strong free agent class outside of some of the top names. You've got Marner, you've got Ehlers, and you've got Chikrin's off the board now, although I don't know how many teams are after him. And you got John Tavares, who most likely will sign with Toronto, just at a more team-friendly deal. And then you've got Sam Bennett's another one. We'll see if Florida and him can come to any sort of terms here. But he's definitely going to get higher than the 4.4 and center as well, too. So don't know if the Canucks will be in on that. We'll see. Brock Besser's been playing really well as of late. I think he's got goals in all of his games in the last little bit here. So we'll see if the Canucks circle back and try and get a contract done with him. But if he wants a long-term deal, he'll get it on the open market. So I don't know if the Canucks are going to factor that in at all. Are there any teams that you'd pick the Blues to beat that are above them in the standings? Well, I just said it there with Avry. I think there's a possibility of the Blues upsetting the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets are a very well-balanced team, but St. Louis has got that Stanley Cup experience. They've got veterans on that team that have won before. I think St. Louis is one of those teams that they can play any team right now, other than again, the three big threats in the West for me, just looking at the standings right here, are still Vegas, Colorado, Dallas. I think they play any of these teams, I'd probably pick them to win. Outside of that, though, like even Edmonton, hate to take I know Avery's off the not on the show right now, but any of those teams, like you never know, right? Like it's certainly one of those interesting things where Edmonton, they've got some injuries. And again, McDavid took a lot out of himself playing at the Four Nations. Minnesota's got injuries. I don't see any reason why St. Louis can't go on any type of run here. And again, I do think they will make the playoffs. Look at them, 73 games. They have played more games than Calgary and Vancouver, but they still got a good gap here in terms of what they've been able to do. So again, St. Louis is my team to keep an eye on come the postseason, Billy. So that's some good news there. It was a good game last week, by the way, even though Canucks blew it. They blew it in that one, but it's going to happen. So, and then kind of looking the opposite way, we haven't talked about this. Sharks and Blackhawks eliminated. Sharks with just 47 points. Not much of an improvement from last year, but it's weird though, because like if you look at San Jose, I feel like people are kind of like, yeah, big deal. They got time to figure this out. Chicago though, they haven't really been able to take a step forward. If you look at the Blackhawks, they have not been good the last number of seasons. If you look at it there. So if you look at the last couple seasons for them, why can't I find the Blackhawks here? NHL Chicago Blackhawks. Here we go. So you look at these last couple seasons. Look at this. Out of the playoffs, lost in round one. Out of the playoffs. It's been a long time since they've had, they won that title, the Stanley Cup back in 2014, 2015. That's, a decade ago. And since then it's been, they made the playoffs 3 times. They've been out of the playoffs, 7 times, and going to be 8 here this season too. Are playoff tickets more than regular season? Yes, they are. Absolutely. I don't even want to tell you how much I paid for my playoff tickets last year in Vancouver. It was a lot. So we will see. But yes, going to be another tough season for the Blackhawks. The draft class this year might be worth having a quick look at some of the top NHL prospects 2025 NHL draft. Let's have a quick look at who is available right now. So these are some of the names they have right here. I don't know a lot about most of these players, I should say. So, you've got Matthew Schaefer. Have heard that name. Not the strongest draft class is what people are saying, basically. So see which way Chicago wants to go. They did trade Seth Jones. I wonder if they do take Schaefer just because, assuming they get first pick, we'll have to see how the lottery shakes out for them. But yeah, Chicago, one of those teams that I think people are expecting a bit more. Nashville's been a huge disappointment. Look at Nashville, 3rd last. There's no way anyone would have predicted that at the beginning of the season. It's crazy how far they've fallen. And then you got the Kraken, who, this is supposed to be a step ahead this year. They get the signings with Matador and who's the other guy they signed? Chandler Stevenson. That's the other guy they signed. It hasn't really been much of an improvement here. So And then I think the Kraken, if I'm not mistaken, do have some cap space, or I might be wrong about that. Let's see. Yeah, they got a little bit of cap space. Afternoon, I haven't been able to get into hockey this year. I'm so bored without NFL. Maybe that'll help me get watch the playoffs. That would be my recommendation. Playoffs are going to be good this year. Misa may go number 1. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how things shake out. He's currently ranked number 3. But again, this is just the NHL's sort of grades. I think this is like a staff's pick, where they decide on who's going to go there. Most points in the OHL since Tavares. That's impressive. Doesn't always mean you're going to translate to the NHL, though. Remember, John, you'll probably remember Gilbert Brulé, who was one of the top point leaders in the WHL. Was drafted by Columbus and just never panned out. Just one of those things. It's some players, you hope that they pan out. Sometimes they don't. One thing I'm curious, any goalies in here? Probably not. It's not been a good goalie market the last little bit here. So do they have goalies? I wonder if they have it by position. Oh, international goalies. North American goalies. Let's see who the top goalie is here. This Joshua Ravensburg. Never heard of him. 6'5", though. Pretty decent size there. So, but you look at it there. Good to see some North American goalies here. Obviously, internationally, seems to have everyone beat. Why has Vegas been such a strong team from the start and other new teams not? Okay, so with Vegas, and we'll put the standings back on here. With Vegas, they just made some really smart moves when they came into the league. So they kind of took advantage of some bad trades that other GMs made, in particular Florida. Like they got a couple really good players from them, and and the thing with Vegas is like they've always been aggressive on the trade market. So they've made some moves have panned out, some haven't. Like they traded Nick Suzuki, who's now the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, for Max Pacioretty. Pacioretty was good for a number of seasons for Vegas, helped them a lot, but ultimately they traded him away for nothing. So that was one of the bad trades they had. But then they made aggressive moves like getting Pietrangelo, trading for Jack Eichel, which is a trade they absolutely won. And we saw it. Speaking of Eichel, he got a hat trick last night against Minnesota. Forgot to mention that. So they've just been a team that has, I think players like playing there. Who wouldn't? I mean, I've been to, I don't know how many games. Like it's a great atmosphere. One of those cities too that, lots to do, not a ton of media pressure. Close for most people. Like if you live on the West Coast, it's pretty close to a lot of different spots. Yeah, and it just seems like a very well-run organization. And then, yeah, they've just made a lot of good moves. Like they really, like out of any expansion team that I think's come into the league, at least recently, they've really done a good job of like molding the team. Like Seattle should have done what they did, and they didn't. Seattle got too patient, and now they're seeing a team that is taking forever to get any sort of step forward. In fact, I think they've regressed a bit, if anything. So, yeah, Vegas is just a combination of them making good moves, being aggressive, taking risks that have panned out, and also just, knowing when to cut your ties. Like I remember when they got rid of Marc-Andre Fleury, that was a very unpopular position from the team, from the fans, and they ended up winning a cup shortly after that. So they've been able to maneuver, and let's be honest, they've been using the cap to their advantage, right? The whole, Mark Stone injury last year. So if you guys don't know, basically they do this thing every year. It hasn't happened this year, but they do this thing every year where one of their star players they'll say they're injured, and then magically they're ready to go in the playoffs, and that's kind of an advantage to them. Jordan Tutu as well. He was meeting in Brandon. Yeah, Jordan, great reference there. Remember him for Nashville. The guy was a scrapper for sure. If the league expands to 36, which 4 cities do you think will get the teams? Great question. I'm glad you brought this up because my guy Taylor was messaging me, who runs Fanatics View. And by the way, John, you asked me a question earlier about the guests on the show. I'll mention that here. I book all the guests. So Taylor does give me some recommendations, but or if he has any contacts, but usually I'm the one booking the guests, which I don't mind. I'd like to have guests on the show every week. It's just sometimes I run out of time to get guests. But getting back, the reason that I reminded me of that question was because Taylor messaged me about Houston. It seems like Houston's getting a team, and he's obviously from Dallas. He's really hoping that Houston comes into the league because it'll be a good rivalry to Dallas. So yeah, I think that Houston seems like a possibility. There's talk of them going back to Atlanta, which I wouldn't mind. Like, I mean, it's a big market, like big sports market, right? And I think, as far as I know, it's a big TV market too. So I think it could work this time because Atlanta Thrashers, when they were there, they just weren't a well-run team. Like they couldn't seem to get any traction at all. So maybe this time it goes differently. We were arguing about this in my messages with Taylor. He's talking about Hamilton. I don't think Ontario is going to get another team. Because I think the Leafs, the Sabres, even the Senators might protest and be like, no, like we don't want another team taking away fans from our buildings. So I don't know if Hamilton will get one. I remember in the 90s, remember Jim Basile, the BlackBerry guy, he kept trying to bring a team to Hamilton, never happened. So I don't think the league's interested in going that route. So yeah, I would go Houston, I would go Atlanta, and then 2 other teams. I would go Arizona. I think they're going to eventually find an owner. Arizona is the third largest TV market in the U.S., is my understanding. So that's why Bettman is so hell-bent on going back there. A lot of players live there in the off-season. Like, it's a nice place to be. Like, I love going to Arizona, actually. It's not that far from where I live here in Vancouver. It's very, very good golf, all that stuff. So I think Arizona would be your third, and then your fourth. I don't know. They'd have to get some billionaire to come in and do it for Quebec, because I think Quebec makes a ton of sense. It's just that I think it all has to be privately funded. I don't think the government's going to step in and help out with trying to bring an NHL team there. So that's my understanding with my limited business knowledge is it sounds like Quebec won't get a team, but we'll see. You never know. But I think, yeah, if it's the four cities, I think we'll all be American. We'll see. Yeah, again, they're going to go back to Arizona. I don't think there's a question. I just think the owner they had before was just a complete moron, and it didn't really work out too well for them, right? So, all right, guys, let's do like 5 more minutes on here. Kansas City. Yeah, good call. Because didn't Kansas City has, and another thing it might be worth looking at is look at some AHL markets. What are some markets that are doing well there that could potentially be an NHL franchise? Kansas City, I believe, had either of an East. Here, let me even look, actually. Kansas City Hockey DB. I feel like they did have a team there. Yeah, they have an ECHL team there right now. The Kansas City Mavericks. And they've had teams over the years. Tons of teams. So, yeah, we'll have to see if that's something that's feasible. But, yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think Houston would be cool if they got another team. The only thing that, I mean, there's also part of me, too, that's like, no more teams. I mean, I've been a Canucks fan my whole life, since I was a kid. And they've never won a cup. And you add in more teams, the chances of them winning a cup are going to be even slimmer. So there's part of me that's like, no more teams. But saying that, one of my favorite things to do is go travel to cities and see an NHL game there. I did that this year with Utah. I do it with Vegas every year. If Houston gets a team, you better believe I'm going to go get tickets and go see that. Have you seen Arizona State hockey team in the arena that the Coyotes were in? The barn was rocking. I've not, no, but I would love to see a game there. That actually might be something I'll look into. That was one of my regrets last year or year before is that I didn't see a game in the barn because it would be such an intimate experience to see a game like that, right? I like going to hockey rinks in general. Like, it could be like a rundown rink in the middle of nowhere. I still like going to, there's just something about going to the rink. John, I'm sure you can relate as a Canadian. It's just, it's fun going to like any rink, like there's something nostalgic about being in a rink as someone who played hockey growing up. So definitely would like to go see a game there. I've actually never seen a college hockey game. That is on the bucket list for sure. I told you my bucket list, right? My bucket list is I want to go to every NHL arena. I've covered a lot of them so far. I've been to a lot of NHL arenas, but never, I haven't been to all the stadiums yet. And college hockey would want to be on that list too. Been to a few OHL stadiums, went to Ottawa, went to London, went to Kingston. Those are the 3 I've been to. Obviously, WHL, I've been to Vancouver Giants at the LEC. And yeah, need to see more. I live in Saskatchewan. Blades, besides the WHL, do you think NHL could work in Regina, Saskatoon? I mean, you know what? If you see the support they have for the CFL, I would think they could. The issue is the money, right? Like, where are they going to get the money to run an NHL team out of Saskatoon? Like, I think the CFL works. Although I'm even hearing there might be some problems with the CFL right now because they don't. Apparently, Randy Ambrogi, the CFL. I don't know if you follow CFL. If for anyone who doesn't follow CFL, sorry to bore you with these details for a couple minutes here, but I think that, the commissioners basically said, like, I'm stepping down, but I'm not going to step down until we get a commissioner, and there's been no commissioner yet. So I don't know how viable an NHL team would be in Saskatchewan. I don't know the economics of it, but I would love to see them get a team. I would love more Canadian teams. I think that would be great. Again, 1993, I think was the last time a Canadian team won the Stanley Cup. Like, that's crazy. It's been that long. We've had a number of teams that have gone to Game 7, Canucks, Oilers, twice now, the Flames. There's been a lot. Rosen's Forest starting tomorrow. I played in the arena that North Dakota Fighting Sioux played at. It was awesome to see the banners. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I know you mentioned that yesterday. That's another thing I don't pay enough attention to. I will be watching a bit of BU if I get the chance because Tom Willander plays for them. He's a defensive prospect for the Canucks. I was actually talking to the radio this morning. They're looking to sign Willander. We'll see if he ends up coming with the big club here pretty soon, but I'll be keeping an eye on that for sure. Need to get a Flow Hockey account. That's where they have, I think, isn't Frozen 4 in there? I know they have all of the AHL stuff on there too, so we'll have to see. All right, guys, good time to end the show here today. Thanks to those of you who did stick around this whole show. Shout out to our guy Avry for coming on. I'll try and get another guest on for next week as we're ramping up towards the playoffs. A lot of good action tonight, like I mentioned. Really looking forward to the Islanders and Canucks tonight. If I missed your question, guys, leave me a comment. Always appreciate you guys supporting this show. For you watching MMA, I'll be back tomorrow on my usual stream on my channel, so hopefully you guys can tune in there. But really appreciate you guys tuning into another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Hit me up on Twitter, @LynchOnSports, if you ever have any hockey-related questions. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.